Hi book fans. So today I'm talking about Charles Bukowski's Ham on Rye. This is one of my favourite books of all time, possibly my favourite book of all time. But I don't want to say that it's my favourite book of all time because there's plenty of other books that I have read and enjoyed, and I don't like to put anything on a pedestal. I'm 30 years old. I don't tend to have favourites anymore, and plus books are uncomparable. I can't really say this is the best book ever because you can't compare Bukowski with other writers, to be honest. They stand alone. Why did I enjoy it so much? Well, first let's talk about Bukowski's style, his writing style. Nobody can replicate that. I'm now on my third draft of my second novel called Passport. It's a travel story. After finishing my first novel, I sent it to an editor, and the editor said, you should look at some of Bukowski's work. That's how I came across Bukowski. So my first novel was written without me even knowing about Bukowski, and yet my first novel does have a lot of similarities. I think it's the fact that I'm a straight white man probably has a lot to do with it, to be honest. But there you go. I think I read Post Office first, and after that I read all of Bukowski's novels. I was like, this is it. This is the writing. The reason is, when you think about literature, you tend to think of very over elaborate writing, literary words, long sentences, and a bunch of nerds sitting around the table quoting flowery language to each other. And Bukowski just destroys that. He just writes, and it's just bold and direct and simple, but it's fantastic. And he still uses all of the literary techniques just with such pure and easy language. But that's what makes it fantastic. Like, he still uses similes and metaphors, pathetic fallacy, personification, and autonomy, and all of the literary techniques are there, but he uses them with his raw and bold language, and that's what makes it so magical. And juxtaposition, some of the things that he puts in the same sentences, like I wanted to kiss her, how great it would have been to kiss her as Hitler was closing in on Europe and peering at London, and to juxtapose like the idea of kissing a woman with the war as well in the same sentence. It's fantastic, and it's brilliant to read, and so he's just on point, absolutely on point. I think that you can learn by reading Bukowski just so much about literature, so many techniques. They're all there, but they're all there within common everyday language, and that is why it's fantastic. The plot of Ham on Rye, we start with him waking up or having his first memory underneath the table with the sunlight pouring in on the white tablecloth, and he can just see legs, and he sets that scene fantastically, and it hooks you in from the start, and then we go through his childhood, his school life, his family life, the friendships that he forms, and so on and so forth. If you haven't read it, I don't want to ruin it for you, obviously, but the plot is just a straight track through his childhood, and every single chapter is interesting. He pulls out all of the emotional events that I suppose made him who he is, and the plot never gets dull. It is just like that all the way up. It starts on a level and it keeps going. It never gets dull. I mean, we hear something about the sagging middle in books, you know, where you have like detective stories where you go, oh, this has become dull, it was a great start. And often it is with many books, it's a great start, and then the middle is, this is terrible, and then the end, oh, okay, it's not right. Bukowski just, he's on form the whole way through the book. There's never a boring moment. There's never a boring moment. He keeps every chapter interesting, and it seems that even if he's talking about the most mundane stuff, he still makes it interesting. And that brings me on to my third point. The third point I want to make: the topics that he picks and the details that he puts in. If we speak about the topics, he's not afraid to talk about anything or to write about anything. He doesn't act as a writer as if he's above it all. There's a lot of writers who probably won't talk about sex or having a good shit. Because, it's not literary. Bukowski, there's not a topic he won't dive straight into. Anything. And it's all there in Ham on Rye. Sex, death, shitting, pissing. He doesn't shy away from it. He doesn't pretend that he's above it. He's just there, sitting with it. We're human, we're raw, and these are facts. And I'm going to write about them. And he does, and he writes about it magnificently. I don't think that there's, like, what other writer can do that, has done that. So yeah, the topic, and there's certain topics, like he likes talking about insects. I did want to mention that. I didn't really know where to put that in this video, but he likes talking about like spiders and flies. I noticed that throughout, not just Ham on Rye, but all of his literature, is that he does do that in his poetry as well. He uses insects in there quite often. It's just like a motif through his work, which is just interesting. And I suppose that I probably would say that he identifies with those creatures, or he finds something with those creatures, like him being a fly on the wall, or something like that in life. I suppose he was like that, really. Not that I knew him, but just observing things. And also his position in the level of society obviously was not a big businessman. He was a low status, sitting there in the low ends of life, in the bars. That's why barfly as well. Yeah, but like I say, so that's another thing. He's able to talk about everything: sports, fighting, sex, women, drugs, alcohol. He doesn't talk about politics too much, but he does obviously. They do have a mention in his books, and you can feel the pressure of the political world crushing him in the story, but he never really writes about that too much. And then I wanted to talk about my favourite point of Bukowski, the rawness of his work. It's his ability to just state facts, plain. These are the harsh realities and truth of the world. And he has no fear of putting those in his book, and also writing them with a minimal amount of words, and just in classic Bukowski form, there's a sentence of truth. Take it. And I love this about Bukowski because he puts into words things that I've thought but not been able to express, or even I've expressed them in my own mind but never heard anyone else say them. And I've gone, is that just me that thinks that? And when I read Bukowski and there's a line and I've gone, I know exactly what he means. And he's written it within 6 or 8 words and backed it up by other sentences as well that clearly state his opinion, and I go, yes, he has written in words, he has thought and written what I have previously acknowledged but never said to anybody. When I read that in Bukowski's work, I go, yeah, I know that I'm not alone. I'm not the only person in the world that thought that, because there was Bukowski that also thought it and wrote it down and felt the same. And I'm so glad that he wrote it down, and I'm so glad that I was able to read it and understand that it's not just me who feels that way, that there was someone else who felt exactly the same thing and expressed it so clearly, boldly and straightforwardly. And that is why I love Bukowski's work. So, I just recommend you to read it. If you want some raw truth from a man who had a tough, I think, life and was pissed off at a lot of things and spent his whole life writing about it, then give it a read. I genuinely think you're going to find something in there, and something that you're not going to forget for the rest of your life, because once you've read Bukowski, you're definitely not going to forget reading it, and you're definitely, what I understand is after reading Bukowski, that I've felt much more sure about myself, knowing that my opinions are actually, when an author puts something in writing, I know that the things that I think are backed up because somebody else wrote about them. So there's definitely more of a feeling of certainty about my opinions in my life now, thanks to reading Bukowski. So, leave your comments below. Tell me what you thought. Anything to say about any of Bukowski's other works? Be very, very interested to hear. And thank you for watching. See ya.